Hello and welcome to my series of conversations with stalwarts of music. Today's episode is being partnered by Perpetual Buzz Experiences. It's an artist representation company with three very basic but lofty goals. They are the artist launchpad for indie musicians, helping them leverage success in the best possible way. And they make sure that the experience is as smooth as it gets. Be sure to check them out on www.perpetualbuzz.com. We have yet another podcast partner, which is Wire Up Music Store, one of the finest music retail stores with state of art equipment, ranging from musical equipment such as guitars to ukulele, percussive instruments to classical instruments. Do check out their Instagram page, which goes by the handle @wireup.india. And if you happen to be in Bengaluru, hop into their store in Koramangala. Speaking of my distinguished guest for today, he's a founding member of the chart topping contemporary jazz group called Foreplay. Nathan East was 16 years old when he got his first big break and found himself on the road with Barry White. The next time the phone rang, it was Quincy Jones on the line. The calls kept coming, and it was for the past 40 years or so. East has been churning out hit songs with legends such as George Harrison, Michael Jackson, Phil Collins, Whitney Houston, Beyonce, Barbra Streisand, Daft Punk. I could keep dropping these names for almost 1 hour. Above all, he's one of my major inspirations to take up guitar in the first place and my major inspiration for music. I'm delighted to welcome the master of the bass, Nathan East.
Say video. Okay. Good morning.
Good morning, Nathan. Namaste. How are you?
Namaste. Good, thanks. I'm sorry I can't get my internet on the computer, so I'm on the iPhone.
That's all right. That's all right. You sound great, and the landscape around you looks great too.
Oh, good. Okay.
Where are you
Great.
at? Which part of the world are you in right now?
Yes, I'm actually in Nevada at the moment,
Oh wow! So you're touring. What are you there
and
for?
then we're about to start. We're about to start a tour
Mm-hmm.
with the Eric Clapton band.
Uh huh. Wow.
But before I go, I was invited to celebrate the birthday of Shania Twain today. So we're
Oh,
here.
incredible.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
believe I
So
believe she did a concert last night.
she did. Yes.
Wonderful.
And
Convey
so
my
we
regards and my best wishes to her. Wishing her a very happy birthday.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely will. So she did a beautiful concert and really good person.
Lovely, lovely. Great. So let's get started with our agenda for today. I have a couple of interesting questions coming your way.
Okay, great.
So your roots as a musician have been in UCSD. I'm sure it was a very enriching environment. You've been mentored under the great Bert, Turetzky, and Cecil. They've been two great mentors who have helped you nourish your musicianship. What has been your inheritance from these great set of teachers in terms of the spirit of music that they embodied?
Well, in life, if you're fortunate enough to get really good teachers, it can really determine um, the direction and whether you are able to, you know, thrive in that particular area. And these two, Cecil Lytle and Bert Turetzky, almost 50 years ago at UC San Diego, I was just fortunate enough to be under their professorship and friendship, and they've become mentors, friends, and musical colleagues that really helped me, at an early age when I was developing. They just uh, were giving me really good musical and life wisdom.
Lovely. I know this is quite an unfair question, but what are some of the qualities that you have imbibed, and what are some of the aspects that you failed to acquire from your mentors?
Well, the good thing is when you're able to recognize that these people have it's like a parent, when your parents are giving you advice, sometimes we don't listen because it's our parents, but they are giving us the best advice that they can. They would never steer us wrong, So it's the same with mentors and instructors, and I feel like I was really just able to appreciate the fact that they were at the top of their game, and I was fortunate enough to be a beneficiary of what they knew in their lives.
Wonderful.
And
Your work.
most of the stuff I did listen to and adhere to. I really appreciated what the value and what they were saying.
But I'm sure the environment that you grew up in, your entire family was musically inclined, your brothers were into music. I'm sure that environment also played quite a vital role in sort of developing this skill set for you in a lot of ways.
Yeah, absolutely. It's everything. It's what's going on around you culturally, spiritually, and I do again appreciate the environment that I grew up in. I had really good, strong parents, and my family situation was there was never a dull moment. With seven children in the house, and my mom and dad were very supportive of all of our endeavors, and I think that's one of the most important things, to have to nourish a fruitful and successful path.
Must have been quite lively growing up with that many people in a family, right?
Absolutely, there was never a dull moment in the house.
When I listen to your music, I get this tremendous sense of flow, that of being uplifted and experiencing sheer bliss as a common strand in terms of quality of the ethereal, if I were to describe it. Is that reflective of the personality that you are normally, apart from the musical bit?
I would say pretty much any musician you're gonna get their spirit, and to me that flow comes from, again, you know I remember back in the day, you would hear the music blasting throughout the neighborhood. People would sort of take their music pretty seriously, and everybody had some kind of stereo system that you could turn up, and you could hear, the sounds of Motown and Gladys Knight and Earth, Wind and Fire and Marvin Gaye and all these, great musicians that this was coming in, from the Beatles to all of those people. We had music was just kind of filling the air of the neighborhood. So I feel like that was kind of part of the spirit that I carry with me to this day.
In terms of creating music, let's get into that topic. So, do you keep an audience in mind while creating this music? If you had to express your intuitions or feelings in your brain, there is this process of catharsis in terms of giving it a certain form and shape. Do you also keep in mind as to how the audience would receive or interpret it while putting out your music? What is your approach towards that?
I think that's a consideration, but the first thing is just internally, if you have um, something that you want to convey, I think you're the first person that you have to get to believe it, and understand it. And then if the audience comes with you, that's just a bonus. But we never know, or I don't think we can ever really predict exactly how someone is going to receive it. But our mission is to put it out and let it do what it's going to do. You know,
So, if I
there's
had
so
to
many.
summarize, yeah, please
Uh-huh.
go on. Please go on.
I was just going to say, there's so many times that I was recording something in the studio that I thought, um, you know, oh, when everybody hears this, it's going to be, it's going to reach a lot of people. And then it was the opposite. And then there's some things that I thought, oh, this isn't, this wasn't really anything very special. And then all of a sudden, everybody just gravitated to it. So it connects. So it's always to me a mystery of how what connects people to a certain sounds or notes.
Right. So if I had to summarize it, it would be, a process of putting it outward, and then there's completion. That's how you approach this entire thing.
Exactly.
Got it.
Exactly.
Got it. So let's talk about life in general. I'm sure you want to reach a certain sense of inner perfection. One may want to attain some sort of enlightenment. For someone like you, is perfection the goal, or is it always the boundaries that you'd like to keep extending? Which is more important for you?
Well, but perfection, I learned a long time ago not to necessarily shoot for perfection because, um, you know, God is the only perfect perfect thing. That I think we can kind of aim in a direction of a very high standard, and uh, mostly, I think when we're making music, we let the heart sort of sing and dictate, and not go for just strict perfection or virtuosity. And I um, sometimes when I hear perfection and virtuosity, I'm not too moved. It's impressive, and you can say, "Oh, this person practiced a lot and learned these scales and now play perfectly," but it doesn't move me. It doesn't
Right.
really touch my heart. But then, when an artist can play one note and you can feel something,
Hmm.
to me that's a little more. It penetrates the spirit a little more.
Got it. As we discussed earlier, you've learned under several great mentors, and I'm sure each person, in a lot of senses, has a very distinct style in terms of singing. It's this quality of very intense emotion, feeling, caressing the words that, in some senses, distinguishes a musician or the musician within you, right? How did you go about developing this quality? Is it something that you consciously do as a technique, or is it just a sum total of several years of practice and learning?
Yeah, I think it ends up being the total of what you've become, the lifestyle that you've lived, and the
Mhm.
experiences that you've experienced, and after a while, that becomes sort of built into the recipe of who you become.
Got it. I'm also very keen in understanding your songwriting process. So how does the process happen? Is it a flash of inspiration, or is it in the form of words or an image that pops at the top of your head? Where does it begin, and what are the sort of recesses of the mind that help trigger this process for someone like you?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question that still to me remains a mystery because I've been driving down the street and an entire song will come to me. And I remember back in the day, I would before iPhones and everything, I would call my answer phone at home and
Mhm.
leave a song idea on it. But sometimes you hear something and it triggers a melody or a set of chord changes. Uh, I rarely am able to just sit down. Okay, I'm going to write a song right now. It's always kind of triggered by some inspirational idea, or um, someone was crying, and you try to figure out, oh, what's going on, and then some notes come out, or completely random. You're sleeping, and all of a sudden, what's this melody that's in my head? Let me wake up and write it down, or record it.
Right. So, in terms of being a musician, let's slightly move towards performance now. You're a musician who does extensive amount of touring with so many greats, and very often there is this notion in terms of a potential risk for musicians who performed the same set list or the same set of songs over and over again. They kind of begin to do it mindlessly because they have this formula as to what works and what doesn't, right? And sometimes one may not bring their own creative self in or during a performance. Does that happen to you?
you know, I don't let the fact that I'm doing something every day or every night influence how much energy that I put into it. I mean, it's never it's never a phone it in and just get through the notes for me. Um, and whether it's one soul or 20,000 in the audience listening, I'm always feeling like this time is my only opportunity that I have to express what's going to be expressed and touch a heart, potentially. So I can't just phone it in. You have to completely act like this is the first or the last time that I'm going to be playing this song, and I keep that with me every single performance.
Marvelous. It kind of takes me back to my childhood, probably my first or the second childhood memory. Harry Belafonte and you and Sir Eric Clapton have been some of my major inspirations. Till this very date, I go back to the first performance that I ever saw as a video. It was that of you and Sir Eric Clapton performing at the Royal Albert Hall. So you did like a very, very cool version of Knocking on Heaven's Door, like a reggae, with a reggae twist to it. So,
Wow.
so that particular song sort of inspired me to pick up the guitar as an instrument, and yeah, thanks to you for that wonderful performance that you put forth.
Well, thank you very much for including me in such good company. Harry Belafonte and Eric Clapton were very big influences as well on me as a young musician, and it's always to me still just a joy to be able to. It's coming up like 40 years that I've been working with Eric, and to this day, and every night is still very special, and not only especially musician from a musical standpoint, but just from the brotherhood.
Yeah. Interestingly, that performance also had Phil Collins, and it also had Greg. Greg,
Right.
yeah, you guys were like throwing out some wonderful harmonies along with these guys, and it just sounded so magical. It was completely mesmerizing. So this is more of a fanboy moment right now for me.
Well, it's again, this is what I mean when I say you never know who's listening or whose heart you're touching, and what kind of influence. And for me, the most amazing thing is this is what I get to do, and it's so much fun. If you can imagine how much fun it is to stand on the stage with Greg and Phil Collins and Eric Clapton and just do a version of a great song like "Knock on Heaven's Door" and just having fun with the overall spirit of it. It's that's a great memory for me as well.
Interestingly, we have a lot of fans on the Instagram live stream who are very curious to know the sequence of events when Sir Eric Clapton first approached you. Could you elaborate on that? What was it like the first time he ever called you, or he ever invited you for a musical collaboration?
Well, first of all, I think we were destined to meet because I was introduced to Eric by Phil Collins when I was in London working on the Philip Bailey Chinese
Easy
Wall
Lover.
album.
Easy Lover.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And so uh, we went out to Guildford, which is where it's about an hour outside of London, where I think close to where Eric lived and Phil Collins lived. And I just remember we went to a pub and Phil introduced me to Eric there. And so we said hello. But then not too long after that, I was playing Live Aid and with Kenny Loggins in Philadelphia. And I came off the stage and there's Eric Clapton. And he said, "Oh, it sounds great. You want to hang out, And so that was great fun. And then Phil introduced me. We ran into him again in the studio in England. So the first time I worked with him was for the Behind the Sun album and Forever Man and lots of those great songs. Jeff Porcaro was on drums, and it was the kind of the LA finest. Steve Lukather, Greg Fillinganes, Michael O'Martin, so And so we all came together, and we were all mutually excited to meet each other, and so that was the first time he called, and then I remember getting called to work on the recording of for August, which was produced by Phil Collins,
Hmm.
and as soon as as soon as we would finish the takes in the studio, it was Greg filling games again, Phil Collins on drums. And as soon as we would finish the takes, uh, Greg would throw his headphones up, and everybody was, like it was really an exciting energy in the studio. And so Eric's manager was in, uh, and next thing you know, he saw kind of the chemistry with the band, and then he came in the room. He said, "How about these 6 days?" And I'll remember it was the Montreux Jazz Festival, um, Oslo in Norway, it was Copenhagen, and about a half a dozen dates around Stockholm, around Europe. And so we did those dates. It included the Royal Albert Hall, and we had such a good time. And that was kind of the beginning of a very long friendship and touring around the world.
Incredible. If I may ask, do you have a music project that's coming up with Sir Eric Clapton? Do you have anything in the making right now?
Right now, that we're in the studio and recording some new material,
Hmm.
and it's interesting because in today's time, still make an album, but I think a lot of artists are now putting out little singles. So the latest single that was released is called "Pompous Fool,"
Hmm.
and there's been tube sort of lyric video put out. But we're in the studio recording a collection of songs for an album that
Lovely.
will be released. Yeah.
I also liked your unplugged music videos that you released during the pandemic with Steve Gadd. You did like a very very different setup, like a stripped down version of all the classic songs in an unplugged format, which was quite interesting. Very recent, but yeah, I loved it.
Oh, thank you. That was very special as well because um, everyone was on lockdown. So this was an this was sort of an example of how do you, if you're on lockdown, what kind of way can you get around that so that you can actually work together? So they created a bubble out in the countryside. We had to quarantine. I remember going there for about 10 days and nobody was there, just to quarantine, and took it very seriously in terms of not trying to infect anybody, but still be able uh, to play our music and do what we have been doing so long. You wouldn't ever want to lose the opportunity to be in the same room together and make music and respond to each other. That's just something that um, is very special for us.
Very true.
And and Eric worked out a way around sort of the technicalities of you can't be in a room with people, So it's a big, huge room,
Yeah,
uh, and took every single precaution that you could take to try to make music under the circumstance of being on lockdown.
lovely. I'm gonna take you a step back right now. Let me take you back to Nathan at the age of 16, where you played with the great Barry White. I'd like to know how
Yeah.
important is it for young musicians to apprentice with an elder? Is that possible with today's remote learning and musical consumption? The same kind of approach?
Yeah, I think it is. There's so many um, great videos now on YouTube alone where you can just go down that path and spend a day just studying all the great musicians. I mean, there's just so much. It's packed with information, um, and regardless of what instrument you play or what kind of music, everything from Oscar Peterson to Jimi Hendrix, Wes Montgomery, and old and new and black and white, and Ray Charles, and so sometimes, time permitting, I love to just search for some great music, and there's really a lot there that I think is available to us that wasn't even closely available to us back in the day.
But don't you think the process of transmission is essential from that of a teacher to a student? Isn't that like very vital?
Absolutely. I mean, it's as important as, say, if you're taking a tennis lesson and the teacher can see, okay, your grip is just, you have to change it just this much, you know. And it's the same thing with teacher. I mean, I used to teach and don't have as much time these days, but through artistworks.com, I'm able to do video exchange lessons and have a curriculum there. And with that, I'm able to look at the students and say, um, okay, try to put your hand, your thumb behind the neck, and I think that interaction with the teacher is very important. Just and again, there's little tips that can help save years of saying doing something um, sort of the wrong way, or just trying to point the student in the right direction.
Sure. People like listening to certain kind of music when they feel a certain emotion. Based off of that, we assume that music tends to express a particular mood, right? So, in your opinion, which musical form expresses the emotion you want to express in terms of your music the best way?
You know, there's so many. Um, First of all, there's so many emotions to express,
Yeah.
and there's so many ways of doing it. So I mean, I love I love playing a ballad where you can every note just gets the full length, and you could put you have time to put a lot of heart and soul, but then a nice dance song or something that's lively, again, is a way to for the listener to kind of get into it and move their body and move their spirit.
Mhm.
So again, I feel very fortunate to have been involved in so many different types of music, whether it's rock and roll or R&B, um, soul, funk, jazz. I feel like uh, it's been a blessing to have so many frames of references. And when I grew up, I was listening to everything. So you'd have radio stations where they play Miles Davis, and they'd play Earth, Wind, and Fire. And then Jimi Hendrix, Santana, um, Chicago, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, The Temptations. All these were just coming at me. When I was sort of learning music and growing up. So um, that's one of the things I always recommend is that students learn, um, just as many different types of music as possible.
Do you believe in the cycles of life and rebirth? In terms of many musical masterpieces that you see, when you look back upon your work and your life in general, uh, there are certain landmarks or milestones that you've been trying to reach out to or have been able to achieve. Uh, Total surrender to the process of music as a whole. Uh, how does it work for someone like you?
Wow, that's that's a very good question. And
Thank you.
because for me, I think music is we're speaking the language of God. It's a very spiritual journey,
Hmm.
and so you you're having all the things that are coming through you environmentally, spiritually, physically. Um, and I think one of the people that I've really seen that happen is being in the studio with Stevie Wonder, where he sits down, and I've never seen music flow through a person so miraculously. Where it's just coming from a higher source and power and being transmitted through the through the human experience. And it's something that I've always, like, when I sit down and play. We were recording the song "Tears in Heaven," um, and I remember thinking, this, I'm not playing the song is playing me. And the spirit of what's happening around you is sort of just coming through you, and I like to try to just be as open as possible, and let it come through me, and be sort of a vessel. So it's a very mysterious uh, art, where sound doesn't you can't touch it, you can't put your finger on it, you can't put it in a bottle, but it's the reverse. It touches you, and for me, that's always been a very magical and mystical observation about what music is all about, and why do some people, again, one note. Jimi Hendrix would just play one note, and it's like you're just going, "What just happened?"
You did mention spirituality or the word spiritual in a couple of occasions during our conversation. So I'd like to touch upon the spiritual aspect of music. Is it that certain traditions of music historically have been motivated by religious imperative? Right. So in my personal opinion, it has been more imitative, and people have tried replicating them than it has been an expression of one's inner urges, anguish, thriving, or fulfillment. Could you throw some light on that?
Absolutely. I mean, where I started was in the Catholic Church. My brother Raymond, who's now a priest, actually a Monsignor at a church in Washington D.C. called Saint Teresa of Avila,
Mhm.
and then my older brother David played guitar, and then my friends played. So we started in the church with folk masses, and we would, before the service began, we would get together at the house and write music that would correspond to the liturgy that was going to be used that particular day, and we'd create songs that were definitely about the spiritual message that was going to be conveyed. And so that's sort of my entry into music, and then I felt like, from the very beginning, it was a spiritual experience, and to this day, I sort of approach it from, first of all, I feel like it's a blessing and an opportunity just to play, and that's where I first picked up my first bass. Um, I feel like the bass discovered me. There was just a bass on the altar, and sitting there, and this was before I was playing, and I just asked, "Whose is this?" Nobody knew whose it was, and I just would be okay to pick it up and start playing. Yep. So when I picked it up, that's when I felt some very uh, high kind of spiritual energy coming through me. That, oh, wait a second, I feel like this is something that I'm familiar with already. So to this day, music has a very spiritual uh, meaning to me.
Lovely. That being said, do you have a sense of God or eternal presence? Does it have a particular form?
Oh yes, I mean, and I think it's easy for people to get hung up on what you call it, or but for me, yes, I feel like it's a gift from God. Uh, I start each day and end each day with prayers of thanks, and I always ask for guidance and protection and direction, and I feel like everything we do is directed by God, and all of our experiences, be they good, be they bad, it's all part of what I think we're meant to go through in this life.
That's quite a lovely take. This entire ideology that you put forth.
Thank you, and I feel that music becomes a reflection of that, and that's one of the things I'm so grateful for about being a musician, is that it's it's accessible to me to be able to um, express through music what's going on in my life.
In terms of developing a particular musical style, people have described your music as something that universally resonates, and your music is universally accessible to people from different continents. In what ways during your working span have you felt that your musicality had particularly evolved?
You know, early on, I mean, I started playing at age 14, but when I was 16, I was on stage at Madison Square Garden with Barry White, playing, and so I feel like I just got, I got blessed from the beginning to be thrust into uh, the real world where it was already developed. He was a very popular artist, filling arenas
Right.
around the country, and so to be sit there, put on a tuxedo, play with the Love Unlimited Orchestra to a packed arena at age 16, I felt like this is kind of first it was very cool, and I realized that this is something that I want to do. I want to pursue and continue to do so. From there, just continue to try to develop your art and your craft and your gift.
Is there a feeling of insecurity somewhere? Of course, in every artist, they want to seek some sort of affirmation at the end of the day. Do you have something like that?
But because of the human experience, we're you know yeah, it's natural for doubt and insecurity to come to enter, and I think what we do is just go with that as yet another emotion that we let ourselves deal with, and um, try to make so that we feel secure in a situation. And it's for me, it's has to do with your relationship with life in general, but then uh, your relationship with your instrument and your relationship with the music that you're creating.
You have contributed to over 2,000 possible albums in your entire career, and you have more ongoing for the next couple of years. I'm sure. What dream or aspiration have you set for yourself now, or is it just going to be a never ending, ongoing process?
Well, one of my prayers is that it never ends because I enjoy it so much. So I always, am grateful that it continues. This is more than my fourth decade
Yeah.
of actually making music for a living and continuing to work. And I'm always grateful for every job that I have, and every opportunity to share this what I do. Um, and it's just one of those things that I feel like you know there's always something that being guided to do. One of the next things I want to do that I haven't done is make a record with my son Noah, who
Hmm.
love his playing. He's turned into a wonderful pianist, and he took up. We got him a Hammond organ a while back.
Wow.
He said if you were to give me one gift for the rest of my life, it would be a Hammond organ, and I would be done. And I thought, wow, he was that passionate about that, and so we got him a Hammond organ, and it's in the living room. And one of the things we love to do most is play, and for me, playing with my son is the epitome of the spirit of what I do. We're in there sometimes 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, um, and again, I feel the spirit of the music coming through us, and it's something that is very exciting to me. To play with a person that not too long ago you were changing diapers, and driving around, and now this person has the awareness to have a musical conversation with you that really again penetrates your heart. And so this is something that I really look forward to doing, and going out and performing with him, just because it's something I've never done,
Hmm.
and like a new experience for me that I thoroughly enjoy.
I loved your collaboration with Noah on the Reverence album. You guys put out a song together. It was really nice.
Thank you. Yeah, he guested on both my albums,
Hmm.
and the Reverence song I believe it was "Over the Rainbow" that we recorded
Yes.
together. Duet. And it was the Beatles song "Yesterday" that we did on the first album,
Hmm.
um, and it was very. First of all, it was great. Our producer Chris Giro, he said, "Have Noah say, 'Are you ready, Dad?'" you know. Now we recorded it as, yeah, I think he was 13 when we recorded the first place. He had this little voice. Are you ready, Dad? Then the next time he did it, the voice was a little deeper. And when we make our album, I think we'll have to start with the same thing, and his voice will be a lot deeper. But yeah, definitely, definitely having a great time together, and I feel it's just uh, a real privilege to make music with him.
So is he also going to pursue music full time?
I believe he just graduated from the House School of Business in
Yeah.
UC Berkeley,
Hmm.
and so he does have that. Um, Again, that area of exposure.
Hmm.
Uh, but I can tell when we play together too that his heart is really in music as well.
Incredible. We're really looking forward to hear a lot more of collaborations between the two of y'all. I'm sure it's gonna
Thank you.
sound it's gonna sound incredible. And he also has a lot of pressure, I'm guessing, to carry forward this entire musical heritage to the next couple of generations. There's a lot that he has to carry forward.
Well, I mean, he's the way he's handling it. I enjoy as well because he just enjoys playing, and so just that spirit alone for
Hmm.
me is like there's no pressure. It's just wow, this is so much fun, and
Hmm.
when we play, it's just so much fun. Like when I'm thinking of a chord, a potential chord, like then you hear it. It just is one of the most magical things.
Lovely. Your life seems to have this incredible quality of flow, surrender, and harmonizing with that flow. Have you ever doubted what you were doing as to its value or meaning? Have you ever asked yourself that question?
You know, it's not a lot because the value or meaning it changes. It changes like a stock. Like one day it's up, one day it's down, and I don't feel like I'm the judge of what the value or meaning is. I feel like instead of being the judge or judging the work, I just do the work, and the chips will fall where they may. It's not up to me to figure out what value to put on this after. But while I'm making it, uh, my value and my focus is the standard, and this the high standard of I hope this is good enough, and
Sure.
and so that's my focus normally, and again, it's a lifelong mission where you never really you never really crack it. You're always trying to uh, even once you put it down, it's like my thought is how can I make it better? Is there another level that I can take this to? Which there always is.
Do you think it's necessary, useful, or important to be a great soul in order to make good music? Right? So there is this whole idea of a great human being carrying some amount of virtue. So is virtue a necessary component to being a great artist?
Well, I would say a lot of my favorite artists seem to be great souls. One of the first influences in my life was Wes Montgomery.
Hmm.
You listen to his music and his choice of notes. I mean, although I never had a chance to meet him or hear him in person, but I have to believe that he's probably one of the greatest souls,
Yeah,
ever, because of uh, this beautiful music.
got it. So I'm going to take you to a slightly interesting segment of our interview, which is called Turn It Up, which is brought to you by Hashtag Magazine. And the interesting part about this segment is I'm going to ask you very concise questions, very simple to answer, and you can be very spontaneous with your answers. It's going to be more of a fun round.
Okay,
All right. First
okay.
question. First question for you, Nathan. What is that one song that always makes you cry?
Oh wow. Um, there was a song that it's by Al Jarreau. It's called "After All," and
Oh,
whatever
wow.
it's just really one of those that just just gets tugs at the heartstrings. But more recently, at my son and daughter just graduated,
Mhm.
and as soon as the pomp and circumstance started to play, I cried like a baby every time. And there's something about that song and the form and the chords that just brings tears to my eyes every time. And I think it's the association with a level of completion that took so much time and energy and effort, and they finally did it. And as they're walking across the stage at this university that is so difficult to even get into, and then even more difficult to get out of, you just feel a sense of relief and accomplishment, and it never failed. They for both their graduation ceremonies, and I went to about three, um, and as soon as the song started playing, I just couldn't stop crying.
On the contrary, what is your favorite guilty pleasure song?
Well, you know, anything by Stevie Wonder. you know, like we were out last night, and as soon as Superstitious starts playing, everybody in the room is just dancing,
Yeah,
unconsciously,
yeah,
and you know, uh, I enjoyed. We played a song called "Get Lucky" with Daft Punk,
yeah.
and there was something about that song that even in the studio, on playback, everybody in the studio was dancing, and that that to me was the first indication. You never know what a song's going to do, but that was one of my first indications that this might be a hit song.
And I'm sure you know what they look like because we've just seen those fancy helmets on.
Yeah, I almost posted something, and when we took pictures in the studio, and as just before I hit click, they said, "Oh no, don't post! Nobody knows what we look like," So
Yeah,
they saved me from the embarrassment of letting the secret out. But yeah, it's good times, good fun, and again, there was lots of energy in the studio that I felt like, wow, if this song is heard by the world, I have a feeling it will resonate with a lot of people.
got it. If you had to put together an all-star Motown or an R&B band together, who'd be in it?
Wow, that's an amazing question. Well, first of all, I was just with Ray Parker Jr. last night, and we were
Oh,
talking
wow.
about
Okay.
uh, Nile Rodgers. They both revere each other. But I think if you had Nile Rodgers and Ray Parker Jr. on guitar, it would be, first of all, as funky as it gets. Those two guys are,
Totally.
and there's many guys, Paul Jackson Jr. But between those two guys, it really is, uh, there's not too much funk left to put on the table. And then Greg Fillinganes, who
Yeah.
he can play anything, is the best of the best of the best. Um, is amazing. Uh, we lost Ricky Lawson on drums, but we had so much fun playing together. He's on my first album, and he was one of the funkiest drummers. Of course, Steve Ferroni. I'm blessed to play with a lot of great drummers, but I think if I had Ricky Lawson in there, uh, it would be amazing, and then that would be the core of the rhythm section.
And who'd be on vocals and the bass?
Wow, I mean, when I play, I always say, what would James Jamerson do? So like Jamerson would have to be on bass because he's the genius that I think every bass player, when they approach it, they say, what would James Jamerson do? Just the genius of the bass, and then of course you have all the vocals. I mean, Aretha, Whitney Houston, and I can't believe these beautiful singers are no longer with us, but they literally, just could sing anything. And of course, Ray Charles. you'd have to have him on vocals, and yeah, it would be a lot of fun.
That's gonna sound massive. What's your favorite cuisine?
Ooh, I love sushi,
Hmm.
but I do love Italian food, Mexican food. I mean, Thai food. I'm kind of all over the place. But you know, sometimes when I can't choose, I my go to is sushi.
Have you ever tried Indian food?
What am I saying? Indian food. Matter of fact, when we used to go to London, that's all we would eat is Indian food. Back in the mid '80s, they're the
Hmm.
best Indian restaurants ever. And um, and although I've never been to India,
Hmm.
uh, I absolutely love Indian food. My son's roommate, uh, his mom makes some of the most amazing Indian food. They're from India, and
Hmm.
you know, whenever we can get over there, we do.
When you coming? We're really looking forward to see you all in India. When is that gonna
In
happen?
India has been on my bucket list for so many years, and I can't wait to get there. And then I'm looking forward to. I mean, it's one of the only places on the planet that I've never been, and so maybe we have to figure something out.
Totally, totally. When I'd
Yeah,
be happy to host you and show you around different parts of India, and
I would love.
also also make you taste one of my favorite dishes in India, which is called tair sadam, which is a yogurt meets rice preparation. It blends in together, and that's my favorite dish of all time. Yeah,
Wow, really?
yeah.
Wow, amazing. Well, I can't wait because uh, you between all the spices that you guys use, and it's incredible.
Since we have a lot of fans tuning in from different parts of the world, they are interested in knowing the top five anecdotes from your touring experiences with all the greats that you've played. Maybe the top five highlights that you can remember in terms of some stories that you'd like to share with the fans out here.
Right. Uh, one of the most recent ones was the inauguration of President Barack Obama. We
Uh-huh.
played on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial.
Wow.
Um, there were literally 2 million people
Mhm.
in front of the Lincoln Memorial on the mall there, and this was 2009 January. It was very cold, but very historic occasion. I'll never forget. I had my grandparents' picture on my music stand and my parents' picture because they weren't alive to see the first black president. But it was Stevie Wonder, Bono, Bruce Springsteen, James Taylor. Like almost the entire music industry was on stage, and we were all very excited at this momentous occasion. That sticks out as one. I've played for a rally in the Superdome in New Orleans with
Yeah.
Pope John Paul II,
Oh, wow.
and
Okay.
again, when he came around in the Pope Mobile and gave his blessing, it was a very emotional time. And again, the spirit that filled the room was very magical. Uh, One of the times that I played at the Royal Albert Hall, and there's been many, over 100, um, but it was the Queen of England and Nelson Mandela sitting in the box, in the royal box, and that's a pretty incredible audience. And then we got to meet them afterwards. We did many concerts for the Princess Trust, where we would meet Princess Diana and Prince Charles afterwards, and that was good fun. Um, and then I've played for at least three inaugurations, um, and so those others have been great. And then another really special occasion was playing for Rock in Rio. Um, it was in the '80s, and that was the first time I had ever played for 250,000 people. So like shoulder to shoulder, as far as the eye can see, to the left, to the right, and beyond, and singing at the top of their lungs. It was just very like I've never seen anything like that. And then it was extremely magical.
Lovely. I have
Well,
one.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Please go on.
No, I
Sorry
was
to
just
cut you.
There have been many that still to this day that just monumental.
Got it. Got it. I have one last question for you, which is a custom in all of my interviews, and I ask all my guests this very question. Down in the distant horizon, what would you want to be remembered as?
Wow. You know, it it's hard to look that far ahead sometimes, and whenever I think what I want to be remembered as, I just try to be that person today, so that not only is it something you remember, but something that I can appreciate today. And so for me, I just hope that people remember or may acknowledge, oh, he left some good notes with us, from the bottom end, and also hopefully that just experience some kindness and um, generosity from my heart, and I hope I think every parent hopes that they did a good job, and so I hope I be remembered as a good parent, as a good husband, as a good friend, brother, and those things. Very
Marvelous.
simple.
Marvelous. Before we conclude this interview, will also be aired on Big FM Shillong and Azol, two incredible radio stations in the northeastern part of our country, which caters to English music. And it is also going to be part of my all new audio podcast, which is called Stalwarts of Music with Aditya Veera, which will be on Apple Podcasts and YouTube and a lot of other platforms like Spotify, which is going to be upcoming in the next couple of days. So I'll be sure to share the link with you, and you can feel free to share it along with your fans.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, I look forward to that. And well, it's a pleasure speaking with you, and I hope the opportunity to come to India presents itself at some point, because I really look forward, and I can only imagine. Also, there's probably some good chicken tikka masala. there.
Likewise, likewise. It'd be a dream come true for a lot of us who've only seen you guys on television or on popular press. We've never had the chance to see you live in our country, but we really look forward to that in the next couple of months. And cheers to
Yeah,
celebrating a lifetime of timeless musical masterpieces that you've put out with all these incredible musicians and inspiring me to explore music from the West when I was a little boy. So thank you for that, Nathan.
wow, it's a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the privilege. I hope to stay in touch with you and share a lot of music from India as well. And we're really hoping to see you in India very soon.
It would be a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you. Thank you, and have a great day ahead.
And you. Namaste.
Thank you, Nathan. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
I'll see you.